I think the Africa Free Trade Agreement is a very good idea in principle. The idea of lowering trade barriers across Africa is a very good idea because Africa, for too long, there are too many barriers to trade. I think trade is a very good thing. It lessens the cost of goods and services. It makes it easier for people to buy goods and services across the continent. And for too long, Africans have too many barriers between them. If I, from South Africa, want to sell something to someone in Nigeria, for example, there's a lot of barriers in the way. Taxes, regulations, labor regulations, all that sort of thing. And the more we can lessen those barriers, the better.
Free trade across Africa is critical because that is the basis for Africa's economic growth and movement out of poverty. People want to trade. In any case, our borders are artificial. So it is not real that we even have these borders. Colonialism imposed them on us. So if we allow people to move back and forth and trade within themselves across Africa, that alone is going to generate sufficient economic prosperity, and is very crucial.
No one is really ever ready for something that they don't understand yet. So I think at this point, the most important thing for us to do is to create enough awareness around the project, tell people how this is going to help all of us get better as a continent. And then eventually when they understand the concept, they will embrace it.
Generally, Africa is becoming liberal because before this wouldn't have been the case. And then secondly to that, I'm optimistic because reducing barriers, especially in borders between African countries, is key. The United Nations predicts it will increase intra-African trade by up to 52% in just a few years. And that's really incredible. That would add billions to the continent's economy. And then finally, Africa has a very low percentage of inter-regional trade. Only about 18% of Africa's exports are traded between other African countries. Compare that to 69% in the EU or 59% in Asia. And when countries in Africa trade with each other, what happens is it tends to be higher value manufactured goods as opposed to commodities when they trade with the rest of the world. Now the benefit of that higher value manufactured goods being traded at a higher number means the industrialization and industry in Africa will continue to grow, and that's what's key to development, as no country in the world has developed without an industrialization process.
All the institutions that need to be put in place for us to benefit at 100% are not there in place, but overall free trade is definitely welcome. What the countries and this continent need to do at such a time is to facilitate the implementation of this agreement, because the agreement in itself is not going to be beneficial if they cannot be implemented, and I mean implemented across all borders.
Governments don't have to necessarily set up institutions per se to make the free trade zone work. What governments must do for the most part is allow free movement of goods and services, free movement of people and capital without restrictions. And there is no reason why there should be restrictions on free movement of goods and people and capital. If we allow the free movement of goods, capital, people and services, you come to understand that it does not require that much institutional infrastructure building to facilitate trade. People trade naturally. If somebody is carrying food from Kenya to Tanzania, or from Ghana to Togo, or from Liberia to Sierra Leone, and there is no impediment in their way, they are going to do, what is good for them economically. So you don't need to build necessarily much infrastructure for that. It kind of happens, and the benefits are there for everyone to see. What is important is that governments remove the impediments in their way. Governments get out of their way.
Trade has been very hard to be done in Africa, even compared to other foreign or other continents. And if countries like Ghana, Uganda, Nigeria and others can break up these barriers which have been hindering trade, then the common person on ground, the common entrepreneur, the agriculture or the farmer is going to be able to derive value for his or her commodity and even her work. African Free Trade Agreement is what everyone, even if you're not a leader, the traders, the business sector, should embrace if Africa is going to move, and if the 21st century is going to belong to Africa. It's very fortunate that Africa is growing at a rate which 3%, 4%. But the African Continental Free Trade is going to be a game changer is going to be able to make sure that countries and people are able to enjoy and share the prosperity which is going to be created out of it. Thank you.